Serving as a prequel to the interactive movie Until Dawn, The Inpatient puts players in the role of an amnesiac who has to figure out the secrets of their past while also avoiding being eaten by bloodthirsty Wendigos. The game's backstory is told largely through flashbacks and must be ferreted out of the asylum's nooks and crannies. Since it takes quite a bit of effort to track them all down, and they're not played in chronological order, I'll summarize the backstory here, as well as offer some explanations for things that are left unclear in the game's presentation. There was a cave-in which trapped some miners. They turned to cannibalism in order to survive. This allowed the spirit of the Wendigo to possess them, and after they were brought to the Blackwood Pines Asylum to recuperate, they began to transform into monsters. The doctor in charge of the hospital, Jefferson Bragg, played by TV's Bruce Gray in his final role, decided to perform a series of experiments on the Wendigos to better understand what caused the transformation. This eventually leads to the Wendigos escaping and killing most of the staff. The player controls a person who wakes up during a therapy session with only the barest memory of who they are. In reality, they're playing as a reporter who was working on the story of the miners. After the miners disappeared into the asylum and weren't heard from again, the player bribed a handyman to smuggle them into the building and get them a disguise so they could interview the patients and seek out records to help provide information for their story. The reporter was then captured by hospital staff and their treatments began. It's largely unexplained in the game what the treatments are for, but there are enough clues for the truth to become clear. The hospital staff desperately want to keep the Wendigo situation a secret until they know exactly what's going on, but they can't risk killing or lobotomizing the reporter because the reporter's bosses presumably know where they are, and an investigation would not go well for the staff. To cover things up more effectively, Dr. Bragg is attempting to develop a way to erase specific parts of the reporter's memory through a combination of electroshock and drugs. During the sessions, the doctor gets the reporter to focus on specific memories and then zaps them, hoping that he can erase the links that allows the reporter to access those memories. At the game's outset, the process seems to have worked quite well since the player's only remaining memory is of hiding in a closet wearing a doctor's uniform. Bragg can't be sure that it's working, however, which leads to the next item. The player decides whether their avatar will be male or female. This determines whether the reporter's roommate will be Anna or Gordon, but has no other effect on the game. The roommate is mysterious at first, but over the course of the game it becomes clear that they were a doctor sent to the room to observe the reporter, and determine exactly how well the memory erasing procedure was working. Bragg can't be sure whether the reporter is actually an amnesiac, or just faking, so the roommate is assigned to win the reporter's trust in hopes of finding out exactly how much they remember. After the Wendigos break out, the asylum goes on lockdown for a week. Bragg is afraid to call the police and reveal his involvement in the experiments on the Wendigos. At this point, he's already covered up the murder of a nurse, and he thinks that if he can just get them all locked away again, the situation can be resolved. During the week, no one bothers bringing food to the reporter or roommate, and they come close to starvation. At a pivotal moment, the player decides whether to succumb to hunger and eat a bug, or to resist it and demonstrate self-control. Either way, they have a nightmare about a dark figure looming over them, representing the Wendigo spirit. When they wake up, they've been left alone in the room. This is because one of two things happened. Either they succumbed to hunger and killed and ate their roommate, or because the roommate succumbed to hunger and attacked and ate the orderly and nurse when they finally arrived to rescue and feed the two prisoners. The result of this decision is either the player gradually turns into a Wendigo over the course of the game, and everyone has contempt for them because they know the reporter is a cannibal, or the roommate gradually turns into a Wendigo before the player's eyes, and none of the characters treat them badly because they don't know that the roommate killed and ate the nurse and orderly. At this point, it's probably important to point out that the miners took weeks to transform into Wendigos after eating human flesh, as did Hannah in Until Dawn. Yet the reporter or roommate goes from eating human flesh to becoming a full-on superpowered monster in less than 24 hours. This is a pretty big plot hole, and it's caused some to speculate that the experiment being performed on the patient was to watch someone being transformed into a Wendigo gradually, by feeding them human meat sandwiches, and then placing an observer in the room to monitor their transformation from close up. There's no real evidence in the game to support this, however, because the player can eat all of the sandwiches without transforming into a Wendigo, and the roommate's questions are generally centered around the player's memories and how they feel about their incarceration, rather than their hunger or strange feelings they might be having. Halfway through the game, the police arrive at the asylum and start killing everyone. because the situation is so dire and confusing, they figure it's just easier that way. They are led by this man, who is, as you can see, black and wears a thin Van Dyke on his face. Considering that the game is set in rural Canada in the 1950s, these officers would all be in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The RCMP didn't have any black officers until 1969, and to this day they're not allowed to have facial hair other than neatly trimmed mustaches. These facts combine to make this a very strange casting and character design. The developers went to so much trouble to make sure everyone else had period-appropriate costumes and grooming. Then, for the cop, they just said, let's make him look exactly like the actor, no matter how little sense that made for the 1950s. That's everything about the Inpatient that I thought needed explaining. If you have any further questions, just let me know and I'll try and figure out the answers with you. If you'd like to see all of the game's endings, just click on the video below. I'll see you back here for more, but until then, au revoir.